What was your "I don't get paid enough for this" moment at work? When I worked at McDonald's, I found out we didn't get paid for closing. We got paid until the store closed, so if it took us an extra hour or two to close, that was unpaid. I wish I knew what I know now, because that is an open and shut case, but at the time, I was young and dumb. My first paycheck, I noticed I had a ton of missing hours. So when I asked my boss about it, she told me we only get paid until the store closed. So that night, I walked out when the store closed. They tried to guilt me into staying because the other team members need me. Frick. That I don't work for free. Sorry. Especially when I'm already making minimum wage. No thanks. Not gonna happen. A similar thing happened to me when I worked at a Taco Bell when I was a teenager. During the first closing shift I was scheduled for, after I was done cleaning everything, I told the manager I was ready to clock out and go home. She told me she still had at least an hour of paperwork left to do and needed me to stay while she did it, since there was a rule that no one could be in the store alone, but she told me to clock out. I laughed in her face and told her, "I clock out, I leave." She didn't make me clock out and never scheduled me to close again, so win-win for me. The owner at a restaurant I managed tried to pull something similar, saying the closers only had 30 minutes period to close a store starting at closing time. If someone walked in 1 minute before close and stayed until 15 minutes after, they only got 15 minutes to close up. If it took longer than the allotted 30 minutes, she wouldn't pay them. There was one night that they had a group of 15 to 20 people walk in 3 minutes to close. They had to prep more food for them and refill what they used. They ended up being there for an hour and a half closing. She deducted the time and I advised my employees to contact the labor board about it. Even though I was the general manager, I had no access to payroll. Let's just say my employees got paid for every minute they were on the clock after that point until I left. I've heard rumors she's doing it again, but not my monkeys, not my circus anymore. Psycho camp director lost her cool on all of the lifeguards because we said we weren't coming back next summer. Reality was we all had legit reasons. I was going to take summer courses to graduate early. Another guard was moving to university and was going to work in that city. Another guard got offered a head guard spot at a camp near her house, etc. Nothing that said we hated the current camp, just other things going on. We were told in a group meeting, if we weren't happy there we could leave, and she would find other guards. Following Friday she calls us all in to tell us what a great job we are doing, and how happy everyone is going to the lake. Tuesday after that she calls us in individually to tell us we aren't working hard enough, and she sees us slacking off all the time. Lunchtime Tuesday all the guards walked into her office, told her to go frick herself in front of the owner of the camp, and we all piled into my Ford Focus and went for beer. Went home that night to message from camp owner asking us to give him a call back. We all chatted and realized he had called all of us. Called him the following day, told him what went down. He asked us to reconsider and that he would give us a $5 an hour raise and report directly to him. We discussed it and agreed on the condition that Psycho director apologized to us at a collective staff meeting. She refused and had a tantrum. Camp owner fired her on the spot, escorted her off the property, and we opened the lake back up. Frick you, Bob. Edit. Wow, my first silver. Thank you. Bob finally got me something worthwhile. Worked at a fast food place about 13 years ago. This lady in the drive-thru claimed she was missing a sandwich. Our policy was to ask for the bags back to verify. I asked to see the bags, 3 or 4, decent sized order, and instead of handing them back like a civilized human being she instantly started raging and throwing the food into the window while cussing me out. Guess what one of the items that she threw at me was? Yep, said missing sandwich. Rotten people will always try to scam something. Well, over 2 decades ago, I fielded a call from somebody insisting they were missing an entire 10-pack of tacos on their 20 taco order. I had no problem telling them I had been making food all day and no, an order like that had never come up on my screen, and to try scamming some other restaurant. I worked at a Chick-fil-A when I was 14 to 18. And while I typically didn't ever have issues with customers, I did once. I was working the drive-thru and was probably 16 at the time. This lady says I gave her the wrong change. Not by just $1, but by like $20. Now math was my favorite subject in school, and the register tells you amount. So I said, I'm sorry, I don't think I did, but I will get my manager. Manager tells her to pull forward, and he will count the drawer and bring her the appropriate change. My drawer was accurate down to the penny and she tried to get my naive, but to give her free money. Needless to say, she was not there when the manager went out to discuss with her. This stuff happens more times than it should. I remember once at McDonald's we handed off the food. It was a runner grabbing all the stuff. Me as manager double checking bag. Then person handing out bag. Triple checking bag. She hands the food and immediately they start passing the bag around the car. Like 5 people. And then they claimed they were missing 2 sandwiches. I looked at driver and said, you mean the 2 that the one behind front passenger put in his hoodie? They all shut up and just drove off. My boss insisted that everybody be at their desks at 8:30 sharp. She made me take roll on an attendance sheet and hand it into her every day. She also made me do it at lunchtime, when everybody left and came back, and when they left at night. Took roll for a bunch of adults 3 times a day. I don't work there anymore. I worked IT with about 30 other developer/firefighters, supporting a large 3-shift-a-day manufacturing line. When the line computers went down, 300 workers leaned their backs against the wall, waiting for us to get the manufacturing process back up and running. We pretty much had freedom to stroll in about 10 AM. Many have worked well into the evening, often took 2-hour lunch breaks. Most of us were on 24-hour call, which earned us half day of comp time for any trip to the office at any time of the day. A new boss was appointed over us. He quickly replaced our casual work hours with strict 8 AM to 5 PM hours, with a 1-hour break for lunch. Day 1 of his new policy, we were working on a failed mid-range computer on the manufacturing line, 300 workers hanging out watching us. Oops, it's 5 o'clock. Quitting time for us. New boss caught us in the parking lot just heading to the local bar and swiftly changed his new policy back to our standard. Oh man, I'm actually relieved, because I had to do the same thing to my subordinates, and honestly I made up numbers 99% of the time, because they worked their full hours, and could prove it, and their performance was the best in the office, because they weren't being crushed by a jerk dictator. I left after I was told to follow my subordinates to the bathroom, to time their breaks in there, and one of my team was a pregnant woman. When I objected, I was told by the highest management that I was immature, not a team player, and I had to do exactly everything I was told. No questions asked, no exaggeration. Those are direct quotes. I made sure my folks were covered and handed in my resignation. After I left, my friends there told me that a bunch of other people walked too. It was a great place to work for my first 2 years, but the manager had never held that position, was stubborn, and hated millennials, and so went out of her way to be horrible to her own staff. No raggards, yo. I had an old boss that tried to do that. We were all working 10+ hour days, but she got upset when we came at 9 AM. She also made us write down, in detail, what we did all day, in 15-minute chunks. So I blocked off 45 minutes every day, where I filled out this report. She stopped that practice after 2 weeks. I worked at a shop that tried to say you had to be at your machine at your start time, not walking away from the time clock to get to your machine, but be at it. But you were not allowed to clock in early. There was only one time clock for a shop of 150+ people. They could not comprehend why this was not working. Posted before this. This was back in the late 90s. I was working at Walmart as my first job as a teenager. I was floated to the garden department one day and there was a guy looking at lawn fertilizer. I walked over and asked if he needs help. He said not now, just looking at the different kinds you have. Pretty standard reply from the guy, so I said okay, let me know. I walk away and then swing back about 5 minutes later. Same guy has proceeded to rip open about 10 different kinds of the fertilizer all over the ground and is rolling around in the stuff. He is also taste sampling the stuff. I called my manager because I did not want to deal with it. Security escorted the guy out the store and called an ambulance in case the ingestion of the fertilizer hurt him. Was the customer a dog? A fair question at Walmart. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more videos like this. Don't forget to leave your stories in the comments below.